Harold and the Frozen Hounds. In the heart of a desolate winter, an old man named Harold Bailey lived alone in a dilapidated house with a large, equally run-down industrial workshop attached. The biting cold seeped through the cracks in the walls, and the wind howled like a restless spirit. One night, as Harold sat by his fire, he heard strange noises emanating from the workshop. Grumbling, he grabbed a lantern and trudged through the snow to investigate. Inside the workshop, he discovered a pregnant dog, shivering and desperate, having found a small hole in the wall to seek refuge. She had made a nest in a dark corner, preparing to give birth. Harold, his heart hardened by years of solitude, angrily chased the dog into the freezing night. He boarded up the hole with nails and wood, ensuring she couldn't return. Back inside the house, Harold could hear the dog's mournful howls above the howling wind. Her desperate scratching at the blocked hole echoed through the night, but he ignored her pleas, feeling a twisted sense of satisfaction. That night, the dog gave birth to 8 puppies in the snow, and by morning, they were all dead, their tiny bodies covered by a blanket of frost. Villagers who lived nearby found their lifeless bodies and were saddened by the sight. But Harold felt no remorse. His heart hardened further by his own cruelty. From that night on, the old man was haunted by the sounds of the dog's howls and scratching. Every night he would grab his shotgun and ventured outside, but he never found any sign of the dog or her tracks in the snow. Yet the howling grew louder and more insistent. Sometimes the sounds frightened him because he knew the dog was dead. But there were other times when the sounds of the scratching and howling would awaken him in a cold sweat, as if in the middle of a nightmare. This routine went on for several nights, until finally, unable to bear the torment any longer, Harold removed the wooden board from the hole, and as soon as he did, the howling and scratching ceased, leaving an eerie silence in their wake. But only for a short while. As the nights grew colder, Harold began to hear faint, eerie sounds inside the house. The soft barks of puppies began to echo through his empty halls. He would shout at them to shut up and be quiet, but this would just seem to encourage them to make more noise. He could hear the sounds of many little puppy feet running from room to room, carrying on with a great ruckus that only a litter of 8 lively puppies can make. This angered Harold, who would sometimes throw objects at the areas of the house where the sounds seemed to be coming from. However, even if he turned on the lights, he could never see any dog or puppies. This went on day and night for a couple of weeks. Harold began to think that maybe he was going mad or losing his mind altogether. Then, one particularly cold night, in the middle of the harshest blizzard the town had seen in many years, Harold was sitting by the fire. The only glow in the room was from the flames of the fireplace. He thought he saw movement from the corner of his eye, and when he looked up, he got a glance of something that jolted him right off his chair with deep fear. Standing up so fast he almost fell. He had to balance himself against the wall to stay on his feet. And there, standing on the edge of the hallway, staring straight at him, was the ghostly figure of the mother dog he once denied a place to gather warmth from the cold, her eyes filled with sorrow and vengeance. While her form was there, he could see the wall that was right behind her through her shape, as if she was made of mist or smoke. And then his eyes bulged out of his head as suddenly he heard the ruckus sound of the little feet running towards him. Suddenly, the mother dog was joined by all 8 of her pups. The puppies' spectral forms, also appearing like clear mist, began to bark and growl, and they ran right towards him. In fear, he tried to back away, but they all ran at him and nipped at his ankles, their tiny teeth sharp and relentless, driving piercing pain through his legs. He shouted out, a sound that was part anger, part fear, and part laughter of the madness, as he tried to stomp and kick at the pups, but it did no good. They just kept on nipping him. He moved out of the room and through the hall, and the pups followed him, barking and nipping with each step he took. He tried to tell himself this wasn't really happening, but the room remained filled with the insistent barking and biting of the ghostly hounds. Harold's cries of anguish joined in the chorus of the dreadful song of madness. Harold grabbed his shotgun, determined to rid himself of the haunting spirits. He chased the apparitions through the house, their ghostly forms always just out of his reach. He aimed his gun and blasted a round of birdshot, but it had no effect on the ghostly pups. It just splintered the wood of the walls. He stepped back, took aim again. The gun roared once more inside the hallway, but it had no effect on the pups, who almost seemed to taunt him by barking and their persistence of their nipping his feet. He took chase after them, and the puppies ran through the door to the outside. Harold ran to the door and swung it wide open, screaming in a battle cry of torment. The wind blasted him with bits of snow from the fierce blizzard outside. With no shoes or coat, he stood there, watching the ghastly pups romp in the yard and run towards the hillside. He chased after them, blasting another round from the shotgun that hit nothing. The ghostly hounds led Harold further outside. He kept chasing them. They seemed to get further away. And so he began to pick up his momentum to move faster through the deep fallen snow. He chased them for several minutes, and each time he thought he was getting closer, he would hear their barks, but they somehow seemed even further away, the cold enveloping him, till his skin began to scream with the burning sensation of frostbite. Blinded by the swirling snow and the darkness, he stumbled deeper into the storm, his screams turning into desperate cries for help. The villagers found Harold's frozen body the next morning, lost and alone in the snow. The old man's house, once filled with his hateful presence, now stood silent, but the spirits of the mother dog and her puppies remained, their forms now peaceful as they roamed the halls. The villagers spoke in hushed tones of the old man's fate, a tale of cruelty repaid by the relentless cold and the haunting of innocent souls. And so the house stood as a reminder of Harold's cruelty, forever haunted by the gentle barks and playful spirits of the mother dog and her puppies, who had finally found peace in the place where they had once been denied warmth and compassion.